Chapter 1, System, Send Me Back. It was late at night in the Sterling Manor. Hazel Bennett lay paralyzed on the bed, staring at the empty room, and closed her eyes in agony. Host, are you sure? You only have 1 month left to live in your original world. Here, at least, you are alive. Hearing the system's cold, mechanical voice, a sarcastic smile curled on Hazel's lips. Alive, was she? She felt it might be better to be dead. 1 hour ago, the Sterling Manor, which should have been silent, echoed with Hazel's screams. Ah, Ethan Sterling, let me go, you can't do this to me. Hazel struggled desperately against Ethan Sterling, who was pressing down on her. But Ethan's strength was overwhelming. He pinned her wrists firmly to the bed, rendering her immobile. Can't. Hazel Bennett, isn't this exactly what you wanted? Under the dim light, veins bulged on Ethan's forehead as he glared viciously at Hazel beneath him. You complained to Grandpa, you messaged Annie. Wasn't it all just to get pregnant with a Sterling heir? And now you're telling me I can't. Hazel, stop pretending. Right now, you just make me sick. As he spoke, Ethan pinned both her hands with one of his and began unbuttoning her clothes with the other. Ethan, I beg you don't. Please don't. Hazel struggled bitterly, but her resistance only made Ethan tear at her clothes more violently. Finally, when the last shred of her dignity was ripped away, Hazel gave up resisting. She didn't understand. Grandpa had simply complained today, as he usually did, about wanting a great-grandchild. Why was Ethan so furious? After a passionless finish, Hazel lay limp on the bed. Ethan, having already dressed, looked down at her with disdain, his voice terrifyingly cold. Hazel Bennett, I've given you what you wanted. The title of Mrs. Sterling, the child, I've given it all to you. But I'm warning you, if you ever trouble Annie again, I won't let you off. With that, he took out his phone. Seeing the breakup text Annabelle Archer had sent him, his brow furrowed deeply. He practiced dialing Annabelle's number, his voice tinged with a plea. Annie, where are you? I miss you so much. Hearing the coquettish and slightly petulant voice of the young woman on the other end, the corners of Ethan's mouth lifted unconsciously. All right, be a good girl. I'm coming to find you right now. Hanging up the phone, Ethan didn't even spare a glance at Hazel, who lay on the bed with hollow eyes. He grabbed his coat and walked out the door. Thinking back on this, tears flowed uncontrollably from the corners of Hazel's eyes. Yes, system, I'm sure. Compared to the humiliation Ethan subjected her to, what was the pain of cancer in the real world? Hazel had been sent to this world by the system to win Ethan's heart. But unlike others, Hazel had begged for this mission herself. She was a terminal cancer patient, and her will to live had attracted the system. The system told her that if she successfully won Ethan over, she would not only live but also become the young Mrs. Sterling. Hazel never expected that during the 2 years of her mission, she would truly fall in love with Ethan. Just as she was trying to find a way to get close to him, the Sterling family butler called her. Miss Bennett, I am terribly sorry to disturb you. The chairman has been in a car accident and needs a blood transfusion. You and the chairman both have that rare panda blood type. Please, could you save the chairman? Okay. Hazel agreed without a second thought. She never imagined this would be her ticket to becoming Mrs. Sterling. After recovering, Chairman Conrad Sterling, wanting to thank Hazel and knowing she liked his grandson, took it upon himself to engage Ethan and Hazel, even though he knew his grandson already loved someone else. Ethan could have refused, but Grandpa threatened him with the inheritance, forcing Ethan to agree. In 3 years of marriage, Ethan had never touched Hazel. Yet tonight, he had forced himself on her, trampling her dignity into the dirt. Since he hated her so much, she would grant his wish and leave him. Confirmed, the return mechanism has been activated. You will return to your original world in 1 month. Hearing the mechanical voice once again, Hazel closed her eyes in exhaustion. Chapter 2, Waking up the next day, the moment Hazel turned on her phone, an overwhelming number of messages flooded her vision. Almost all of them were from Annabelle Archer. There was a photo of Ethan's back as he gently cooked for her in the kitchen. There was a photo of Ethan and her, cheek to cheek, fingers interlocked. There was a photo of Ethan passionately kissing her. There were so many. And these were things Ethan had never done for Hazel. Looking at the photos Annabelle sent one by one, Hazel felt no ripples in her heart. It turned out that when a heart is wounded to its deepest point, it truly stops feeling. Deleting the chat and blocking Annabelle, Hazel got up to wash and dress. Today was the anniversary of Grandma Rosalind's death. She had promised Grandpa she would accompany him to visit her grave. Declining the driver's offer, Hazel wanted to walk alone for a while. However, she never expected to run into Annabelle on her way to meet Conrad. "Let's talk." Annabelle blocked Hazel's path, her eyes full of provocation. Seeing Annabelle deliberately revealing a glaring red hickey on her neck, Hazel frowned. "We have nothing to talk about." Saying this, Hazel stepped around Annabelle, not wanting to get entangled. But unexpectedly, Annabelle grabbed Hazel's arm backhanded. Before she could react, Annabelle's stinging slap landed on her face. "Hazel Bennett, you unwanted charity case, what right do you have to speak to me like that?" Watching Hazel cover her cheek, blood already seeping from the corner of her mouth, Annabelle smiled sarcastically. Everyone knew Hazel was an orphan. If it weren't for the Sterling family's sponsorship, how would she have even qualified for university? Yet, someone like her became the young Mrs. Sterling. Why? "Hazel, you cheap tart with no upbringing. If it weren't for you, the position of Mrs. Sterling would have been mine." Saying this, Annabelle raised her hand again to slap Hazel, but this time Hazel caught it swiftly. "Miss Archer, please show some respect." With that, Hazel shoved her hand away forcefully, and Annabelle fell to the ground. "Respect? Ha, does someone like you have any dignity? Seeing that Eth only loves me, you went and seduced Grandpa Sterling to get him to give you the position of Mrs. Sterling. Tusk, 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 that old coffin dodger. Tell me, when you two are together, can he even get it up?" Annabelle covered her mouth and laughed. "You!" Hazel, who had turned to leave, stopped in her tracks when she heard Annabelle insult Grandpa. She turned around, raising a trembling hand, her eyes filled with flames of anger. Annabelle could say whatever she wanted about her, but she could not insult Grandpa Conrad. "What are you doing?" Just as Hazel's hand was about to fall, Ethan suddenly appeared and firmly caught the hand that hadn't yet landed. "Eth! Ethan!" Annabelle, sitting on the ground, instantly changed her expression. She scrambled up and ran behind Ethan to hide, mist filling her eyes. I don't know what happened. I was waiting here for you to come back, but Miss Bennett suddenly appeared and pushed me to the ground without a word. She called me a cheap tart and said I was ruining your marriage. But Ethan, I really love you. I thought about not disturbing you too, but I can't control myself." Annabelle began to sob softly behind Ethan's back. Hearing the tearful Annabelle behind him, Ethan frowned deeply and turned to glare viciously at Hazel. "Hazel, I told you, if you ever trouble Annie again, I won't let you off." With that, Ethan grabbed Hazel's hand and flung it hard. This time, it was Hazel who was thrown to the ground. Looking at the furious Ethan and the triumphant Annabelle hiding behind him, Hazel pursed her lips tightly and said nothing. The bias was obvious, saying anything more was useless. "Hazel, don't think I won't touch you just because Grandpa backs you up. I never said I loved you, and I never will. As the third wheel, you should know your place and just play the role of Mrs. Sterling." Saying this, Ethan pulled Annabelle into his arms, carefully checking if she was hurt. "And you, meeting someone like this, couldn't you just stay away? Come on, I'll take you to the hospital to see if you're injured anywhere." Ethan gently scolded the woman in his arms. After confirming she wasn't hurt, the worried Ethan still dragged Annabelle toward the hospital, not giving Hazel even a single glance. Annabelle turned her head to look at Hazel, still on the ground, unable to suppress the smile on her lips. Watching Ethan's retreating back, Hazel stood up with a bitter smile. He never loved her. Her presence was nothing but a joke. Not wanting to see the two of them snuggling any longer, Hazel turned, intending to leave that place. But just then, a sedan suddenly rushed out. Before she could react, Hazel lay in a pool of blood. Chapter 3, when she woke up again, she was in the hospital. The pungent smell of disinfectant made Hazel frown. She had always hated this smell, but whether in the real world or the system world, she couldn't seem to escape it. "Hayes, you're awake," beside her, a gentle and aged voice sounded. Conrad Sterling looked distressingly at the child who had once saved his life. "Grandpa?" Seeing Conrad's kind face, Hazel could no longer control the grievance in her heart. Her tears burst like a dam, flooding out all at once. "Poor child, it's okay now." Gently soothing Hazel's forehead, Conrad's eyes also began to redden slightly. "That drunk driver has already been arrested. Hayes, your face. What happened?" Having been worried about Hazel's condition earlier, Conrad only now noticed that Hazel's face was red and swollen, clearly not a mark from a car accident. I'm fine. Dodging Conrad's inquiring gaze, Hazel didn't want to tell Grandpa about what happened today. I just called Ethan. He said he'll be here soon. That brat, really? How could he let you go out alone? Look how dangerous it is. Asking no further questions, Conrad knew that Hazel had always been a child who didn't want to cause worry. During their conversation, Ethan pushed open the hospital room door with a blank expression. Look at you. Where were you all morning? You can't even take care of your own wife. Seeing Ethan enter, Conrad raised his cane and struck him affectionately. Company business. Neither dodging nor flinching, Ethan replied coldly. Then he walked to the bedside, staring coldly at Hazel lying there. You're okay, right? Seeing the bone-chilling coldness in Ethan's eyes, Hazel pursed her lips and shook her head. She knew his concern was only because Grandpa was there. All right, you young people talk it out nicely. Don't look so bitter. Ethan, stay here and watch over Hayes. Since you're married, you need to cut ties completely with those weeds outside. Let your assistant handle the company matters. I'm going to see your grandmother. If I don't go, she'll get angry. Saying this, Conrad turned to look gently at Hazel. Rest well. Don't think too much about other things. With a wave of his hand, the assistant beside him pushed Conrad out of the ward. With Conrad gone, only Hazel and Ethan were left in the room. What did you tell Grandpa? Ethan suppressed his anger, looking at Hazel with a frown. He had originally been accompanying Annie for a checkup at the hospital, but before they could finish, he received Grandpa's call. He had no choice but to leave Annie, who was still undergoing tests, and come to the ward. Nothing. Better be nothing. Looking at Hazel, who was still very weak in the hospital bed, Ethan's cold voice sounded again. Hazel, karma really hits hard. It's a pity that driver didn't just kill you. With that, Ethan turned, walked straight to the sofa in the room, sat down, took out his phone, and didn't look at Hazel again. Hearing Ethan's vicious curse, Hazel closed her eyes in pain. So, Ethan hated her that much. He hated her enough to wish her dead. Soon, just one more month and she would leave his world forever. No one spoke. The air was terribly quiet, save for the beeping of the monitor and the constant sound of Ethan sending and receiving text messages. After an unknown amount of time, Hazel suddenly felt thirsty. But apart from Ethan, there was no one else in the room. Having no choice, Hazel struggled to shift her body, trying to reach the water cup on the table. Just as Hazel touched the cup and tried to bring it down, her hand slipped. The scalding hot water spilled entirely onto her hand. The cup smashed onto the floor, shattering into pieces. Hearing the commotion, Ethan merely looked up and glanced indifferently at Hazel, then lowered his head to continue texting Annabelle. Seeing Ethan's indifference, Hazel, who had intended to ask for help, shut her mouth. Enduring the searing pain from her hand, Hazel gritted her teeth, forcing herself not to cry until a nurse came in to change the dressing. Oh my God, your hand, what happened? Seeing Hazel's bright red palm, the nurse gasped. Before Hazel could speak, the nurse turned and ran to get burn ointment. After the doctor and nurse applied the medicine and bandaged Hazel's hand, and then left, Ethan hadn't looked up once. Chapter 4, looking at her right hand, bandaged like a dumpling, Hazel suddenly remembered that summer 3 years ago. At that time, she had just given blood to save Grandpa, but due to long-term malnutrition, she had fainted. When she woke up, Ethan was by her side. Thank you. Ethan's voice was gentle, though it carried a hint of distance. You're welcome. Taking the water Ethan handed her, Hazel smiled weakly. Perhaps because she had just woken up and was too weak, Hazel couldn't hold the cup steady. The warm water spilled out, and the cup fell to the floor. Although it was only warm water, back then, Ethan had rushed out of the room to call the doctors and nurses. Same scenario. That time, Ethan's concern for her was real. But this time, his indifference towards her was also real. Glancing once more at Ethan, still sitting motionless on the sofa, the last bit of love in Hazel's heart vanished. Let it be. Perhaps they should never have started. 2 weeks later, Hazel was successfully discharged. For the past 2 weeks, Ethan came to see Hazel every day, strictly following Grandpa's orders, never missing a day. But today, the person picking Hazel up from the hospital was Julian Sterling. Grandpa said he has something to do today and couldn't make it. Sister-in-law, I'll take you home in a bit. As soon as he entered, Julian began packing Hazel's things. "Where's your brother?" Looking at Julian's grinning face, Hazel frowned. Although he looked very much like Ethan, Ethan gave off a gentle feeling, whereas Julian felt dangerous. "Who knows?" Seeing Hazel's guarded expression, Julian shrugged helplessly. "Let's go, sister-in-law. The driver has been waiting downstairs for a long time." Saying this, Julian threw the luggage to his assistant, reached out, and scooped Hazel up from the bed in a princess carry. "Julian, what are you doing? Put me down, I'm your sister-in-law." Hazel, reacting quickly, tried to struggle free, but she was locked firmly in Julian's arms. "Sister-in-law, I know, but you're a patient right now." Julian smiled devilishly at Hazel in his arms. He lowered his head and blew softly into Hazel's ear. "Sister-in-law, you smell really nice." Looking at Julian so close, Hazel stopped moving. She didn't know what this madman would do if he really got angry. Julian placed Hazel in the car and then got in himself. "Oh my, sister-in-law, what's this near your eye?" Leaning close, Julian placed a hand near the corner of Hazel's eye and gently blew away some dust. "Sister-in-law, you've been lying in the hospital for so long, your legs must not be used to walking, yet let me massage them for you to improve circulation." Julian lifted Hazel's legs onto his own lap and began to knead them gently. Looking at the smiling Julian, Hazel felt a chill run down her spine. Finally, arriving at the villa, Hazel couldn't wait to put on her shoes and get out, but she was stopped by Julian again. "Sister-in-law, why run so fast? Careful you don't twist your ankle." Julian opened the door and carried Hazel out of the car again. Entering the villa and settling Hazel on the sofa, Julian was about to say something when his phone suddenly rang. Checking his phone, Julian's smile curled up uncontrollably. He looked up at Hazel. "Sister-in-law, something came up at the company, so I'll leave first. Rest well at home, and don't run around." Saying this, Julian rubbed the top of Hazel's head dotingly, then turned and left the villa. Watching Julian's retreating back, Hazel finally let out a sigh of relief. Putting on her slippers to get a glass of water, the door opened again. Ethan stood there, face dark as thunder. Looking at Hazel, the fury in his eyes burned brighter and brighter. Chapter 5, he had originally intended to pick Hazel up from the hospital today, but Annabelle said she wanted to visit Hazel too, so they got delayed picking out gifts. However, when they arrived at the hospital, they saw Julian carrying Hazel out of the entrance in a deeply intimate manner. At that moment, the anger in his heart was uncontrollable. If Annabelle hadn't stopped him, perhaps he would have punched Julian to the ground right there at the hospital gate. Following them all the way home, recalling Julian's intimate actions with Hazel in the car, Ethan could no longer hold back and rushed into the villa. "Speak, what dirty secret do you have with Julian?" Ethan strode quickly to Hazel and grabbed her by the throat. What secret?" Hazel desperately hit Ethan's hand, trying to make him let go, but Ethan was too strong. Her struggles were futile. "Don't think I don't know. If you hadn't promised him something, why would Julian be so attentive to you?" Ethan's grip tightened. "Hazel, do you have no shame? Don't forget you are my wife and he is my brother. I didn't. Let go." Staring desperately at the enraged Ethan, feeling the air thinning, Hazel thought she would die here before the system could transport her back. But just then, Annabelle arrived. Ethan, let go quickly, you're really going to kill her." Annabelle's cry pulled Ethan back from the edge of insanity. Looking furiously at Hazel, who had collapsed on the floor, the anger in his eyes didn't diminish in the slightest. He looked at Annabelle pulling his arm, then at Hazel clutching her throat and coughing continuously. Suddenly, Ethan grabbed Annabelle's hand and walked toward the bedroom. "Ah, Ethan, don't." Hearing Annabelle's pleas and moans from the bedroom, Hazel closed her eyes in agony. Did Ethan have to torture her like this? Struggling to get up from the floor, Hazel wanted to leave, but her feet felt as heavy as lead. In the end, she could only slump onto the sofa, letting her heart be torn to shreds by Ethan. Hazel grabbed the remote, turned on the TV, and turned the volume to the max, as if that could numb her, drowning out the sounds coming from the bedroom. After an unknown amount of time, Ethan finally ended the war. Dressed and walking out, he looked coldly at Hazel slumped on the sofa. "Hazel, are you that cheap? You can sit through even this." Walking up to her, seeing her red-rimmed eyes, he frowned. But quickly, a cold gaze replaced his furrowed brow. Ethan reached out and pinched Hazel's chin. "Hazel, listen carefully. In life, you are my wife, in death, you are my ghost. If you dare seduce Julian again or plot anything with him, Ethan's words were cut off by a ringing phone. Grandpa, MN. All right, I understand. Hanging up, Ethan gave Hazel a deep look, then took the hand of Annabelle, who had just walked out of the bedroom and left the villa. Watching the backs of the two leaving, Hazel finally felt the pain coming from her palm. Without realizing it, her fingernails had dug deep into her flesh. Raising her hand, watching the blood flow down her palm, it felt as though her heart had been pierced by Ethan, leaving a hole that could never be filled. While Hazel was lost in thought, her phone rang too. It was Grandpa calling. Hayes, there's something I've been thinking about for a long time. I want to talk to you in person. Can you come over? Okay. Hearing the kind yet old voice on the phone, Hazel agreed without hesitation. She stood up, simply bandaged the wound on her hand, and called the driver to take her to Conrad's residence. Chapter 6, Hayes, I have a request, and I hope you can agree to it. Inside the villa, Conrad held Hazel's hand, his voice heavy with fatigue. Grandpa, don't say that. I am where I am today because of you. If you need anything, just ask. Good child. Do you know why I chose you to be my granddaughter-in-law? Hearing Conrad's words, Hazel paused for a moment, then nodded silently. At first, she thought Grandpa was just grateful, but later she realized that besides gratitude, it was more importantly because she looked very much like Grandma when she was young. Actually, when I started the company, I truly owed her. Even until she took her own life, I never had the chance to make it up to her. So when I saw you, I felt it was heaven giving me a chance to make amends. Ethan is a promising kid, so I used the inheritance to force him to marry you. I know he always liked that girl named Annabelle. I've met that child, but I trust my judgment of character more. That girl isn't right for Ethan. Saying this, Conrad gently patted the back of Hazel's hand. Hayes, ever since Ethan's parents died in the plane crash, I've been running the company. But now I'm old, and I don't have the energy for corporate matters anymore. Your birthday is in a few days. I was thinking of announcing my retirement at your birthday banquet. I want to hand the company over to you and Ethan. Consider it the completion of my atonement to her. I know it's your birthday party, and this is a bit presumptuous, so I wanted to get your permission first. The old man's hand holding hers began to tremble. He was afraid Hazel would refuse. Looking at the pleading eyes of the elderly man, Hazel placed her hand over his and nodded heavily. She didn't actually care about the birthday party, or even if there was one. She just didn't want to disappoint the old man. The family love she never received in the real world, she found in this system world, and it was all given by Conrad, regardless of his motives. Leaving Conrad's villa, Hazel raised her hand to shield her eyes from the glaring sunlight. She had 2 weeks left before leaving this world. Perhaps the person she would miss the most was Grandpa. Time flew, and soon, Hazel's birthday arrived. Conrad threw a grand banquet for Hazel. He invited many business partners. What he couldn't give to his wife back then, he wanted to compensate Hazel with now. Hazel, are you dressed yet? Ethan paced impatiently outside the door. If Grandpa hadn't forced him, he certainly wouldn't be standing here waiting for Hazel to change. Coming. Hazel adjusted her dress and opened the door. Seeing Hazel appear before him in a red dress, Ethan was momentarily stunned. Although he saw Hazel almost every day, she seemed exceptionally beautiful today. Is there something on my face? Seeing Ethan staring at her, Hazel touched her cheek self-consciously. Nothing. Let's go. Ethan averted his gaze. Looking at the arm Ethan extended toward her, Hazel paused, then awkwardly linked her arm with his. Since their marriage, this was the first time they had been like this, not at each other's throats, yet intimate and distant at the same time. Hazel, you look beautiful today. Hazel, happy birthday. Hayes, happy birthday. As the star of the banquet appeared, everyone gathered around, offering their birthday wishes. But to Hazel's surprise, among the crowd wishing her well, she saw Annabelle. Hazel, happy birthday. Annabelle walked up to Hazel holding a glass of champagne. Her white mermaid dress accentuated her figure perfectly. Why are you here? I came to celebrate your birthday. Annabelle clinked her glass against Hazel's and took a small sip of champagne. I don't need your wishes, and you're not welcome here. Please leave immediately. Looking at Annabelle's innocent expression, Hazel issued an eviction order. Grandpa had said he didn't like Annabelle, and moreover, Grandpa had an important announcement today. She didn't want Annabelle ruining the party. "Oh, don't be so rushed. I'll leave when it's time, just not now. If you don't leave, I'll call security." Hazel turned to walk toward the door, but as she turned, Annabelle grabbed her. "Hazel, don't be like this. I really just came to give you a gift." "Hazel, let go. If you don't like me, I can leave right now, but please don't push me in. I can't swim." "Hazel, please." "Ah." Before Hazel realized what was happening, she felt a sudden pull on her body, and then she was submerged in the Sterling family pool. Chapter 7. The guests didn't know what had happened between Hazel and Annabelle. When they noticed the altercation, what they saw was Hazel holding Annabelle's hand and seemingly pushing her into the pool. Annabelle's instinctive struggle for survival dragged Hazel into the water with her. "Annie!" Amid the chaos, seeing Annabelle sinking, Ethan didn't think twice. He threw off his jacket and jumped into the pool, pulling the drowning Annabelle to the surface. Annie, wake up, don't scare me." Ethan, focused entirely on Annabelle, didn't notice that Hazel hadn't resurfaced since going under. Hazel was afraid of water, more afraid than Annabelle. Once, her aunt had held her head underwater, trying to drown her. It was a secret she kept to herself. No struggle, no cry for help. Quietly watching the chaotic crowd by the poolside, feeling her life drain away bit by bit, Hazel's heart had never felt so calm. Perhaps leaving like this, without returning to reality to suffer the torment of illness, was a good thing. But just as Hazel closed her eyes, ready to accept death, a pair of hands grabbed her firmly, dragging her back from under the Grim Reaper's scythe. Cough, cough, cough. Breaking the surface, Hazel immediately coughed up the water in her lungs. "Sister-in-law, are you okay?" Seeing Julian, who had saved her from the pool, Hazel instinctively shrank back. "Sister-in-law, I saved you. Am I that scary?" Seeing Hazel's instinctive reaction, Julian shook his head helplessly. Thank you." Hazel tried to stand up, but Ethan's cold voice rang out above her. "Hazel, Annie just wanted to give you a birthday gift." "What did she do wrong? Why did you do that to her?" Looking up, Hazel saw Ethan standing before her, holding the unconscious Annabelle in his arms. "I didn't. Everyone here saw it. You pushed Annie into the pool. She can't swim. You clearly wanted to kill her." Brother, sister-in-law fell in too. Julian stood up to defend Hazel, but Ethan shouted him down. "Shut up. You have no right to speak here." She deserved to fall in. If she didn't have malicious intent, why would she have fallen? "Hazel, if anything happens to Annie, be prepared to pay with your life." With that, Ethan tightened his hold on Annabelle and turned to leave the venue. "Sister-in-law, are you all right? My brother really is." Sigh. Julian reached out to help Hazel, who was still sitting on the ground, but Hazel dodged him again. "I'm fine, thanks." Responding politely, Hazel struggled to stand up. But she hadn't taken more than a few steps when her vision went black, and she collapsed straight into someone's arms. She woke up at noon the next day. Seeing the blinding sunlight, Hazel knew she was still alive. "My God, you're finally awake." As soon as she woke, she heard Julian's dramatic exclamation. If you hadn't woken up soon, Grandpa would have summoned every doctor in the world. Julian came to the bedside, gently helping Hazel sit up, then picked up the porridge that had been warmed not long ago and fed it to her spoonful by spoonful. "Where is your brother?" Chapter 8. Watching Julian's actions, Hazel frowned. With Grandpa's personality, he wouldn't have let Julian take care of her. Sigh, don't mention it. After he left with Annabelle yesterday, Grandpa called him countless times, but he didn't answer. In the end, he just turned off his phone. Because of this, Grandpa was so angry his blood pressure spiked. He's lying in the next room right now. As they spoke, Julian's phone suddenly chimed. Glancing at the message on the screen, Julian turned back to continue the topic. "Sigh, how could my brother be like this? For an outsider?" Sigh. "I say, sister-in-law, why did you choose my brother back then? If you were with me, I certainly wouldn't treat you like that." Julian leaned in close to Hazel, looking as if he might kiss her the next second. Just then, the door burst open. Ethan, having just returned home, saw the scene and clenched his fists. Before Julian could react, Ethan's fist smashed into his face. "Julian Sterling, she is your sister-in-law. Show some respect." Wiping the blood seeping from the corner of his mouth, Julian shrugged indifferently. "Brother, maybe I'm a better fit for sister-in-law than you." Before Ethan could swing again, Julian slipped away and vanished. Watching Julian run off, Ethan turned and grabbed Hazel's chin again. Hazel, do you not understand human language? I told you to stay away from Julian, yet you keep getting closer to him. He's not a good person. Don't come crying when he sells you out. Seeing the fury in Ethan's eyes and hearing his anger, Hazel suddenly laughed. Ethan, you say Julian isn't a good person, but what about you? Sleeping with another woman in front of me, abandoning me in the pool to die, what kind of good person are you? I think Julian is right. I should have chosen him from the start. Saying this, Hazel turned her head and bit down hard on Ethan's hand. Not expecting Hazel to fight back, Ethan was stunned. The pain forced him to shake her off. Hazel, are you crazy? You dare bite me? Staring in disbelief at Hazel, who never used to fight back, Ethan frowned deeply. Yes, I am crazy. Ethan, I truly regret falling in love with you. Ethan, since you like Annabelle so much, go find her. Why come back here and pretend? Finally, Hazel poured out all the grievances she had suffered over the years. Ethan, get out. I never want to see you again in this life. Fine. Hazel, you asked me to leave. Don't regret it. Looking at Hazel, who was acting like a shrew, Ethan turned and walked away without looking back. He really was stupid. It seemed his worry was completely unnecessary. Watching Ethan's retreating back, this time, Hazel couldn't hold back. She hugged the quilt and cried bitterly. She never thought her departure would end with an argument with Ethan. After that, Ethan never came home. Departure countdown, 5 days. Hazel dismissed all the servants. She didn't want anyone to see her disappear. Departure countdown, 4 days. Hazel sat by the school's artificial lake for a whole day. Staring at the calm surface, Hazel's heart couldn't find peace. This was where she and Ethan first met. When she first transmigrated, she almost fell into this lake, and Ethan saved her. At that time, Ethan thought she was trying to commit suicide and comforted her for a long time. Departure countdown, 3 days. Hazel took out her phone, dialing the number she knew by heart countless times, but never pressing call. Departure countdown, 2 days. Hazel burned all her belongings. Watching the ashes scatter in the air, it felt as if all the love she had for Ethan over the past 5 years had vanished into nothingness. Departure countdown, 1 day. Hazel took out her phone, posted one last moment on WeChat, then turned it off, waiting for the departure. Finally, the endless wait met its final verdict. Host, are you ready? The return sequence is about to complete. The system's mechanical voice sounded again. Looking at the pregnancy report in front of her, Hazel smiled bitterly. She had felt unwell this morning and went to the hospital for a checkup. She hadn't expected that on her very last day, she would be pregnant with Ethan's child. What a cruel irony. Tearing the report to pieces, Hazel took one last look at the villa where she had lived for 3 years and lay quietly on the bed. I'm ready. Lying in bed, feeling her consciousness blur bit by bit, Hazel knew she was returning to the real world she didn't particularly want to face. Her wedding ring slipped from her finger, the thud breaking the villa's silence. As darkness consumed her vision, a tear slid from the corner of her eye. Hazel finally closed her eyes. Ethan, goodbye no, goodbye forever. Chapter 9. On the other side of town. Ethan, who was shopping with Annabelle, suddenly saw his wedding ring slip from his finger, roll on the ground, and spin several times. Watching the rolling ring, Ethan zoned out for a moment. He didn't know why the image of Hazel crying desperately the day he left suddenly flashed before his eyes. Eth, do you think this dress is pretty? Seeing Ethan distracted, Annabelle twirled in front of him in a new dress. Amen, you look good in anything. Ethan didn't look up at Annabelle. Instead, he picked up the wedding ring and casually put it in his pocket. Oh, you didn't even look. So perfunctory. Annabelle grabbed Ethan's arm and swung it back and forth. Ethan, look at me. Which one is better, the red one or the blue one? Annabelle stood before Ethan, holding both dresses up against herself. Looking at the noisy Annabelle, Ethan felt an inexplicable irritation. Frowning, he suppressed the agitation in his heart and smiled, patting Annabelle's head. Annie is beautiful, so she looks good in anything. Wrap both of these up. Ethan handed his card to the counter. Wow, miss, your husband treats you so well. Both of these are new arrivals. You have great taste. Hearing the sales clerk's words, Annabelle blushed shyly, but beside her, Ethan's frown deepened. I am not. His icy tone made the clerk shiver. Hearing Ethan's cold denial, Annabelle bit her lip and lowered her head in silence. Leaving the mall, an irritated Ethan took out his phone and called Hazel. But no matter how many times he called, her phone was off. This made Ethan increasingly uneasy. Pulling his hand from Annabelle's, Ethan wanted to go home and check, but Annabelle grabbed him again. "Ethan, where are you going?" Looking at Annabelle's confused and urgent expression, Ethan patted her head. "Be good. I just remembered I left some documents at home. I'm going to get them now." Without waiting for Annabelle to speak, Ethan strode quickly to the car. Arriving home, he eagerly opened the door, only to be greeted by an empty villa, as if no one had lived there. He searched every room, but there was no sign of Hazel, nor even the aura of her living there. Ethan frowned. At this hour, if Hazel wasn't home, where could she be? Suddenly remembering her intimacy with Julian 2 weeks ago, Ethan's hands clenched at his sides. He took out his phone and called Hazel again. Hearing that it was still off, Ethan threw his phone to the ground in a rage. Just then, Annabelle walked in from outside. Seeing the shattered phone pieces on the floor, Annabelle frowned. "Ethan, what's wrong? Why are you so angry?" Annabelle looked around. Confirming Hazel wasn't home, she breathed a sigh of relief. Stepping forward, she took Ethan's arm. "Ethan, let's go eat at the Elsie Hotel today. I heard they have new dishes. We haven't been there in ages." Leaning against Ethan's chest, Annabelle blushed. The Elsie Hotel was where she and Ethan first met. They were at a party, and her period came early, staining her dress. Ethan noticed and gave her his jacket to cover it up. From then on, she fell for the man who saved her from embarrassment. But Ethan didn't seem to hear her. He stared blankly at the broken phone. After a long while, he suddenly pushed Annabelle away and stormed out the door. Pushed away, Annabelle fell heavily onto the sofa. Watching Ethan's rushing figure, she frowned tight. She hurried to follow him. She had never seen Ethan lose his composure like this. Driving like a maniac, Ethan drove straight to Julian's villa. Chapter 10, Julian, where are you hiding Hazel? Bursting into the house, Ethan shoved Julian aside. Without a word, he began ransacking Julian's villa, but there was no sign of Hazel anywhere. Watching Ethan trembling with rage, Julian sat calmly on the sofa and sipped his tea. "Ethan, Hazel is your wife. You run to me asking where she is? If you didn't hide her, why is she missing? Speak, where did you hide her?" Ethan grabbed Julian by the collar. Before Julian could react, a fist landed on his face. "Don't forget, she's my wife." Looking at the blood at the corner of Julian's mouth, Ethan raised his hand for another punch. "You still know she's your wife? You don't watch your own wife, and you come here demanding people?" Julian wasn't about to take it. He shoved Ethan away and raised his hand to punch back, but Annabelle stepped between them. "Julian, he's your brother." "He, brother? I don't have a brother." Julian lowered his hand, wiped the blood from his lip, and returned to the sofa to drink his tea. "You." Seeing Ethan about to charge again, Annabelle stopped him this time. Ethan, don't fight. Let's talk this out. I believe Hazel isn't here with Julian. Think about it, where does Hazel usually like to go? Or maybe she went shopping with friends." Annabelle hugged Ethan, dragging him out of Julian's villa. "Ethan, don't panic yet. Hazel really shouldn't have left without telling you. If it were me, I definitely wouldn't be like her." After getting Ethan into the car, Annabelle sat in the driver's seat and drove away from Julian's villa. Watching the trees and flowers rushing backward outside the window, the unease in Ethan's heart grew stronger. He thought for a long time, but realized he didn't know a single place Hazel might go. Annabelle accompanied Ethan, searching aimlessly through the streets until sunset, but they found no trace of Hazel. "All right, Ethan. Maybe Hazel just wanted to go out and clear her mind alone. But it was wrong of her not to tell you." Looking at the frowning Ethan, Annabelle held his hand and pouted. "Ethan, I'm hungry. Let's go eat something. I have a little surprise for you." Annabelle stood on tiptoes and pecked Ethan on the lips. Looking at Annabelle nuzzling in his arms like a kitten, Ethan finally forced a smile. Since Hazel didn't care about him, why should he care if she lived or died? Wrapping his arm around Annabelle's waist, Ethan deepened the kiss until he heard Annabelle gasping for breath before letting her go. "Where did you say we're eating?" Ethan looked dotingly at Annabelle, making her blush. "Elsie Hotel. They have new dishes." "Okay, let's go there." At the Elsie Hotel, Annabelle looked contentedly at Ethan sitting opposite her, her eyes full of happiness. "Ethan, do you remember this is where we first met? Back then, you were quite the gentleman. Ethan, did you know? From the first moment I saw you, I fell hopelessly in love with you. Ethan, all these years, my love for you has never changed. Ethan. Annabelle chattered on, but Ethan was staring out the window at a young couple by a street stall. He remembered Hazel loved eating at those stalls. When she was chasing him, she loved dragging him to eat street food, just like that couple. Thinking of Hazel's embarrassing moments back then, Ethan didn't realize the corners of his mouth were widening into a smile. Seeing Ethan's growing smile, Annabelle thought he was reminiscing about their past and felt a sweetness in her heart. Ethan, happy 10th anniversary. Annabelle took an envelope from her bag and placed it excitedly in front of Ethan. Annabelle's excited voice pulled Ethan back to reality. Looking at the envelope, he was stunned for a moment before remembering that today, 10 years ago, was the day he met Annabelle. Annie, It's okay, I know you're busy. As long as I remember these things, it's fine. Annabelle pushed the envelope closer to Ethan. Ethan, open it, my 10th anniversary gift to you. Ethan smiled and opened the envelope. But the moment he saw what was inside, his face instantly darkened. Chapter 11, Annie, we can't keep this child. Looking at the ultrasound report inside the envelope, Ethan frowned tightly. He remembered using protection every time. This child was too unexpected. Ethan, this is our baby. Annabelle's eyes turned red and her voice choked up. Annie, you know Grandpa won't agree. But he's already 3 months old. Ethan, can I please give birth to him? I can raise him myself. Hazel has you by her side. I just want something to remember you by. Annabelle knelt at Ethan's feet, looking up at him pleadingly. Seeing Annabelle like this, Ethan felt conflicted. He reached out to help her up and gently stroked her hair. Be good, Annie. You know the first child of the Sterling family must be born to Hazel. It's okay. After she gives birth, we will have children too. Ethan, please, I'll hide him after he's born. I won't let Grandpa find out. Annabelle's tears fell like rain, but they couldn't sway Ethan's resolve. No. Watching Annabelle cry, Ethan began to feel inexplicably irritable. Annabelle, I married Hazel specifically so I could inherit Sterling Corp. I can't let all my efforts go to waste because of a child who shouldn't exist. If you insist on keeping it, don't blame me for being heartless. Ethan sat back down with a dark face. Okay, I won't keep it, don't be angry. Hearing Ethan's cold words, Annabelle rushed to hug him. But Ethan, you have to promise me. Once Hazel has a baby, you must give me one too. Annabelle looked up and kissed Ethan on the lips. Okay. Stroking Annabelle's silky hair, Ethan finally smiled. After dinner with Annabelle, Ethan returned to her place. But the unease in his heart kept him awake. Bored, he scrolled through his phone until he finally found the post Hazel made at 23:59 the previous day. Goodbye, everything staring at these 2 words with a tight frown. The anxiety in Ethan's heart wouldn't dissipate. Who exactly was she saying goodbye to? The next day, having not slept all night, Ethan went to the company with dark circles under his eyes. But as soon as he stepped through the doors, he ran straight into Julian. Oh, isn't this General Manager Sterling? Oh, wait, I forgot. The current General Manager is me. Julian deliberately stepped in front of Ethan, looking at him provocatively. What do you mean? Ethan, didn't you know? Grandpa removed you from the General Manager position. On Hazel's birthday, Grandpa publicly announced me as his heir. You are nothing now. Julian reached out and patted Ethan's face. Say that again? Ethan grabbed Julian's collar, anger overflowing from his eyes. Ha, say it as many times as you want, it's the same. From the moment you chose to save Annabelle, this position was no longer yours. You knew the old man valued Hazel and disliked Annabelle, yet you still chose Annabelle. Ha, you don't know, after you left that day, the old man's face turned green. He announced me as his heir right then and there. Ha, Ethan, we fought for so many years, yet you lost over a woman. Ethan, did you know? The divorce papers for you and Hazel are already with the old man. Just one signature, and you... Before Julian could finish, Ethan punched him in the face. Looking at the furious Ethan, Julian wiped the blood from his lip, his grin widening uncontrollably. Ethan, Hazel will soon be my woman, and the company will soon be mine, and you will have nothing. Julian pushed Ethan's hand away forcefully. Watching Ethan's angry eyes, Julian felt incredibly satisfied. For so many years, the old man only saw Ethan. He only favored Ethan. Even though they were born to the same parents, even though he worked so hard, the old man's eyes were only on Ethan. Why? Seeing Ethan about to swing again, Julian clenched his fist to fight back. Just then, a stern voice stopped them. "What are you doing?" Chapter 12. Conrad was being wheeled into the company by his assistant just in time to see the two brothers swinging at each other. His face darkened. "Grandpa, I didn't do anything to him. He came in early in the morning acting crazy for no reason." Julian stopped, hurried to Conrad's side, and gestured for the assistant to let him push the wheelchair. Conrad glanced expressionlessly at Julian beside him, then turned to look at Ethan with a serious yet slightly pleased expression. "Ethan, come to my office." "Julian, there are still matters to attend to in the company. Go handle them first." With that, Conrad turned his wheelchair and entered the elevator. In the chairman's office. "Grandpa, what did you say?" Ethan looked at Conrad in disbelief. "Did Hayes not tell you? Dr. Sue told me yesterday. He said Hayes wanted to surprise you, so asked us not to tell." "I wasn't going to tell you today, but seeing you fighting with Julian in the lobby, Cy, you're about to become a father. You need to settle down." Conrad opened a drawer, took out Hazel's early pregnancy report, and placed it in front of Ethan. Trembling as he picked up the report, Ethan felt inexplicably excited. This was his and Hazel's child. Based on the timing, it must have been from that night. "Grandpa, go. Treat Hayes well. Cut ties completely with those dubious people outside." With Conrad's blessing, Ethan couldn't wait to leave the company. He wanted to see Hazel immediately, right now. He couldn't wait a second longer. But when Ethan eagerly opened the villa gate, the rushing cold air made him shiver in the middle of summer. Hazel was still not home. Seeing the phone fragment still shattered at the doorway, a bad premonition instantly rose in Ethan's heart. "Hazel, Hazel. Hazel Bennett, come out." Ethan shouted as he searched incessantly through the house. From the living room to the kitchen, the bedroom to the basement, the pool, the garden. He searched everywhere, but there was no sign of Hazel. Only now did Ethan realize that all of Hazel's belongings in the house were gone. It was as if she had never existed. Taking out his phone, Ethan dialed Hazel repeatedly, but it remained off. Collapsing onto the sofa in despair, Ethan put his hand over his forehead, staring blankly at the ceiling. Hazel, where could she have gone? Suddenly, something in the trash can caught Ethan's attention. As if sensing something, Ethan stood up and tremblingly picked up the scraps from the bin. It was Hazel's pregnancy report. Looking at the report torn into pieces, Ethan felt as if he could see Hazel's heart, shattered by him, and his own heart began to ache. Thinking no further, Ethan picked up his phone and called Annabelle. "Annie, where are you?" "Okay, I'm coming to pick you up right now." Hanging up, Ethan stared blankly at his phone for a while longer before getting up and striding out of the villa. "Ethan, what's wrong? You missed me after being apart for just a little while." As soon as she got in the car, Annabelle threw herself into Ethan's arms, wanting to give him a deep kiss, but this time, Ethan pushed her away. "Sit properly. Put on your seatbelt." Ethan frowned, staring ahead. Right now, he didn't even want to look at Annabelle. "Okay, I'll listen to you." Annabelle turned and buckled up, muttering complaints under her breath. "Really, you wanted me so many times last night, and now you're so cold." Hearing Annabelle's complaints, Ethan suddenly floored the gas pedal. "Ethan, slow down, I'm scared." Annabelle grabbed the handle in fear, but Ethan showed no sign of slowing down. Finally, amidst fear and trembling, Ethan brought Annabelle to the hospital. Ethan, why did you bring me here?" Looking at the hospital entrance, Annabelle's flushed face instantly turned pale. "I said we can't keep this child." Ethan opened the car door and forcibly dragged Annabelle out. But Ethan, I'm not ready yet." Annabelle clung to the car door, tears flowing uncontrollably. "You don't need to prepare anything. I've arranged everything." Ignoring Annabelle's pleas, Ethan forcibly carried her into the hospital. Chapter 13. "Ethan, I beg you, keep him, please. He is proof of your love for me, my only reliance." "I beg you." Squatting in the hospital corridor, Annabelle pleaded tearfully. But Ethan just frowned at her, images of Hazel flashing before his eyes. What kind of mood was she in when she tore up that report? "Be good, Annie. Don't you still have me?" Frowning, Ethan helped Annabelle up and heartlessly sent her into the operating room. Leaning against the wall outside, countless images of Hazel passed through Ethan's mind. Her laughing, crying, angry, indifferent, so many faces. until the image froze at that artificial lake. That was where they met. He, who never went to the artificial lake, went there for the first time and met Hazel, who wanted to jump in and end her life. He, who never meddled in other people's business, unexpectedly saved her. Even before he realized it himself, he had held Hazel in his arms. When did this girl start existing in his vision so constantly? Thinking of every little moment with Hazel, the corners of Ethan's mouth involuntarily deepened. But just then, a nurse ran out of the operating room screaming, "Mr. Sterling, it's bad Miss Archer." She ran away. Ran away. What happened? Just now, when I took her inside, she said she needed the restroom, so I let her go. But when I went to look for her, she wasn't there. We looked everywhere, but there's no sign of her in the surgery wing. Seeing Ethan's face darkening, the nurse stopped talking. Hearing the unfinished sentence, Ethan clenched his hands tightly at his sides. Turning around, he strode to the security room. Emerging from the security room with a dark face and tight lips, Ethan strode to his car and drove straight to the company. The footage clearly showed Annabelle taking a taxi straight to the company after leaving the hospital. He couldn't let Annabelle cause a scene in front of Grandpa. Thinking of this, Ethan floored the gas again. Finally, entering the company with apprehension, seeing everything calm, Ethan breathed a sigh of relief. However, as he hurried toward Grandpa's office, he heard arguing coming from Julian's office. "Annabelle, are you crazy? It's broad daylight. What are you doing making a scene here?" "Julian Sterling, let me tell you, if you don't find a way to save this child, I will tell old man Sterling everything about you and me." "Annabelle, have you lost your mind? If you dare say a word, I won't be able to save either you or the child. If you can't save us, then we'll all go down together. Now Ethan wants me to get rid of this child, you must find a way to keep him." "What's there to keep? Get rid of it, there'll be another one, it's just a kid." "Julian, you beast, this is your child, are you going to kill your own child with your own hands?" "Fine, since it's come to this, I have nothing to hide either. Tell me, if the old man and Ethan find out that on Hazel's birthday, you deliberately let me in to ruin her party, and you conspired with me to make Ethan see you two being intimate. Guess what the old man and Ethan—" Before Annabelle could finish, the sound of breaking glass came from the office, followed by Julian's gritted threat. "Annabelle, you dare?" "Cough, cough, what wouldn't I dare? You were the one who approached me for cooperation first. You said as long as the old man gave Sterling Corp to you, you would marry me. Now you're going to let Ethan abort our child. Julian, if you don't let me live well, I won't let you live well either." More commotion followed. Outside the door, Ethan clenched his fists, unable to hold back any longer, and kicked open the office door. Chapter 14, Ethan, save me? Upon entering the office, Ethan didn't bother looking at Annabelle on the floor. Instead, he strode forward and grabbed Julian by the collar. "You just said, you made me see you and Hazel being intimate on purpose." Looking at the bruise on the corner of Julian's mouth from the morning, the anger in Ethan's eyes was uncontrollable. Julian looked surprisingly at Ethan, who had suddenly barged in. He paused, then shoved him away and straightened his collar. "So what if I did? Ethan, you don't deserve Hazel at all. I don't know what got into the old man to force Hazel to marry you. If Hazel had liked me back then, none of this would have happened. Ethan, general manager, this is. Oh my WH, what happened?" Before Julian could finish, the assistant walked in and gasped. Only then did the two men arguing in the office notice that Annabelle, pushed by Julian earlier, had hit something. Blood was flowing continuously from her lower body, and she had collapsed on the floor, unconscious. "Call an ambulance." Quickly, Ethan rushed forward, picked up the unconscious Annabelle, and carried her out of the company, in the hospital corridor. "Speak, what exactly happened?" Conrad sat in his wheelchair, looking darkly at the two men standing before him, heads bowed in silence. "Grandpa, it was brother. I don't know what madness he's suffering from. Beating me this morning wasn't enough. He ran into my office this afternoon for no reason." Julian rubbed his bruised lip. "Ethan, you speak." Hearing Grandpa's question, Ethan took out his phone. He didn't speak, but played the recording he had just made. Watching Conrad's face turn darker and darker, Julian tried to slip away but was tripped by Conrad's cane. "Julian Sterling, you animal, they are your brother and sister-in-law." Conrad threw the cane in his hand at Julian, hitting him square in the head. Feeling the warm liquid trickle down his forehead, Julian suddenly started laughing. "Hadohata, Yes, they are my brother and sister-in-law, but have you ever treated me as a grandson? Since childhood in studies in ability, where was I inferior to Ethan? But you only saw Ethan. I worked so hard, yet your eyes were only on Ethan. If I hadn't relied on myself, the entire Sterling family fortune would have fallen into Ethan's hands. Ha 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 ha. You old coffin dodger, we were born of the same parents, why? Why? Julian seemed demonic as he suddenly stood up and lunged at Conrad. In a split second, Ethan stepped in front of Conrad and restrained Julian. Looking at the struggling Julian, Conrad sighed deeply. Julian, do you know how Ethan's parents died? Conrad's words stopped the struggling men. They looked at Conrad in surprise because they heard him say Ethan's parents. Years ago, Ethan's parents took a plane abroad to negotiate a contract. The plane crashed, and they never came back. But how could a private jet just crash? Julian, your original name was Julian Zane. You were the son of an employee at a partner company. Your father was one of the maintenance workers for the plane. After the crash, your father was arrested. Your mother had a massive hemorrhage giving birth to you and didn't survive. Your father raised you alone. When he was arrested, you were small and had no one, so I took you in. Later, you fell seriously ill, burning with fever for days, and forgot everything. I changed your name and brought you into the Sterling family. I just didn't expect your resentment towards the family to be so great. Sigh. Conrad looked at Julian, who had collapsed onto the floor, and sighed deeply. Hearing the sudden truth, Ethan was shocked. He only remembered that shortly after his parents died, Grandpa brought back a brother. Grandpa told him that because his brother had been sickly, he was raised in the countryside. Now that their parents were gone, he feared no one would know of the brother's existence if he died too, so he brought him back. Ethan never imagined Julian wasn't his brother. Ha 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 ha, you're lying to me. Old immortal, just to give everything to Ethan, you made up such a lie. Conrad Sterling, I tell you, I won't believe a word you say today, ha ha ha. Julian stood up, gave the wheelchair-bound Conrad a vacant look, then turned and stumbled out of the hospital. Just as Julian left, the operating room door opened, and the doctor walked out. Chapter 15, in the hospital room, Ethan looked at Annabelle lying on the bed, drained of all color, his heart a mix of emotions. Only now did he realize that the one he had always loved was Hazel. He didn't know when it started, but that energetic girl who always chased after him had long been engraved in his heart. He had never noticed because Annabelle was always there. He thought he always loved Annabelle, but now he understood that Hazel had long since taken residence in his heart. It was laughable. He should have realized it sooner. From seeing Hazel and Julian together and feeling that inexplicable jealousy, to wanting to care for her, to the irritation of Annabelle's pregnancy, to the joy of Hazel's pregnancy. He should have known, but he had buried it deep, unwilling to admit his own fickleness. Ethan? Annabelle's weak voice interrupted Ethan's thoughts. Seeing Ethan staring at her silently, Annabelle panicked. Ethan, I was wrong. I'm sorry, I was blinded by greed. I shouldn't have agreed to cooperate with Julian. But Ethan, ever since you married Hazel, I became the one hidden in the shadows. She was clearly the third party, so why did she get everything in the end? Ethan, believe me, I only let Julian deceive me because I loved you too much. Ethan, you'll forgive me, right? You still love me, right? Annabelle struggled to sit up, holding Ethan's hand, looking at him pleadingly. Annabelle, your child is gone. Ethan didn't withdraw his hand but looked at her indifferently. The child? Ethan, it's okay, I didn't want it anyway. Ethan, we'll have our own children, right? Ethan, you still love me, right? Annabelle threw herself into Ethan's arms, hugging him tightly, begging for a last sliver of hope. Annabelle, you know the answer to that question deep down, don't you? Ethan pushed Annabelle away. I'm only here because I don't want Sterling Corp's name stained by a death. Since you're awake, take care of yourself. Ethan stood up and left the ward without any hesitation, ignoring Annabelle's cries behind him. Returning to the villa, looking at the empty home, Ethan lay weakly on the bed. Without Hazel, everywhere felt cold. Grandpa used many connections, but they couldn't find where Hazel went. It was as if she had never appeared. Ethan couldn't figure out where Hazel could have gone. He lay there for unknown hours, until the sun set. The afterglow shone through the window, and a ring sparkling with brilliant light caught Ethan's eye. Ethan got up and tightly gripped the ring. It was their wedding ring, specially chosen by Grandpa. Hazel's ring was here, but where was Hazel? Tremblingly picking up the ring, a tear slid from Ethan's eye, falling onto the diamond and merging with it. Beep. Life form detected. Hello, host, System 10,030 at your service. I can take you to find the person you most want to see. The price is 50 years of your lifespan. The mechanical voice sounded. Ethan was stunned at first, then a smile curled on his lips. I accept. As soon as he spoke, a white light flashed. Ethan disappeared into the light, along with the diamond ring connected to the system. If he could see Hazel again, what was 50 years of life? Chapter 16. In the real world, Hazel had just been wheeled out of the chemotherapy room when a man in a suit blocked her path. Miss Bennett, hello. I heard you're awake. My boss wants to see you. Looking at the respectful man before her, Hazel nodded slightly. This was the third day since Hazel woke up. Even before entering the system, Hazel knew a mysterious person was paying her medical bills, but she never had the chance to meet this benefactor. Now that the benefactor had appeared, Hazel had to thank them properly. The man took Hazel to the last room on the top floor of the hospital. The door opened to reveal an elderly woman in her twilight years. She lay motionless on the bed, looking even sicker than Hazel. The suited man wheeled Hazel to the bedside, bowed to the old woman, and left the room. Good child, come closer. Let me see you clearly. The old woman reached out a withered hand to Hazel. It trembled as if it would fall any second. Hazel hurriedly reached out, suppressing the pain from chemo, and held the woman's hand. Miss Ross, thank you for paying my medical bills all this time. Hearing Hazel's thanks, Rosalind Ross shook her head gently. Tremblingly, she removed her oxygen mask and took a deep breath. Child, you've suffered. Rosalind smiled faintly at Hazel. Only then did Hazel see the dying woman clearly. Between her brows, she looked incredibly similar to Hazel herself, and Hazel felt she had seen this face somewhere before. After thinking for a moment, Hazel's eyes widened in disbelief. Grandma. Yes, the old woman before her looked exactly like the grandma whom Conrad Sterling missed day and night. Seeing Hazel recognized her, Rosalind nodded gently. Surprised to see me, aren't you? Good child, actually, like you, I was a host chosen by the system. Rosalind touched the ring on her finger. Hazel noticed the ring on Rosalind's finger was identical to the one she wore in the system world. Back then, bored with this world, I called the system and became Conrad's target. My mission succeeded, but due to certain events, I requested to return. But this transport requires a price. I paid with my health. After returning, tormented by illness day and night, I missed him more and more. But I couldn't go back. You only get one mission. So I called the system and traded the rest of my life for a chance to see him. You didn't know, but I've been watching him through you. I think when he first saw you, he must have felt something. The way he looked at you couldn't fool me. I just didn't expect Ethan to treat you like that. Child, you've really had it hard. Rosalind wanted to reach out and touch Hazel's head, but speaking so much had exhausted her strength. This time, I'm really leaving. I've left all my assets to you. Hazel, thank you for letting me see him one last time. I have no regrets in this life. With that, to Hazel's shock, Rosalind closed her eyes forever. Looking at Rosalind, who looked as if she were sleeping, Hazel's face was covered in tears. She didn't know why she was crying, only that the tears couldn't be stopped. Declining the suited man's offer to escort her, Hazel left the ward. She just wanted to be alone. However, she never expected that while pushing her wheelchair, lost in thought, she would run into the person she thought she would never see again. Chapter 17. When Hazel met Ethan, she was pushing her wheelchair in the hospital garden, basking in the sun. Thinking about the truth she just heard in the ward, Hazel didn't notice the slope ahead. The wheelchair rolled down uncontrollably. Unable to dodge, it crashed straight into a passerby. The wheelchair flipped, Hazel fell to the ground unable to get up, and the person was knocked by the sudden impact into the hospital's artificial lake. Seeing someone fall, the doctors and nurses in the garden rushed over to help Hazel back into the wheelchair. Just then, before Hazel could react, she was pulled into a wet embrace. Hazel, it's you, it's really you. Ethan hugged Hazel excitedly, ignoring his soaked clothes. He thought the mechanical voice was a hallucination. When the white light brought him to this world, when he saw Hazel in the wheelchair, he thought he was dreaming. But falling into the lake, feeling the biting cold water, he was sure. He wasn't dreaming. He really saw Hazel again. Hearing Ethan's voice, Hazel froze, then pushed him away with all her might. Ethan Sterling. Why are you here? Looking at the sudden appearance of Ethan, Hazel was full of confusion. She wanted to ask clearly, but her body wouldn't allow it. From chemo to meeting Rosalind to meeting Ethan, the shocks were too much for her brain and body. Waiting for no response, Hazel felt her head grow heavy and her vision darken. Looking at Ethan's anxious, blurry face, Hazel fell into a deep faint. When she opened her eyes again, she was back in the ward. Smelling the disinfectant, seeing the man beside the bed holding her hand tight with red, swollen eyes, Hazel finally confirmed that seeing Ethan wasn't a dream. Hazel, how? How did you become like this? Looking at the pale Hazel with barely a breath left, Ethan's heart ached so much he couldn't breathe. Just half a month ago, she was full of life, arguing with him. Now she just lay here, as if moving would take all her strength. None of your business. Hazel pulled her hand from Ethan's. She saw the wedding ring on Ethan's finger. It was the same as Grandma's. Ethan, you shouldn't be here. Hazel turned her head away, unwilling to look at him. But Hazel, I missed you. Seeing Hazel's rejection, Ethan felt as if he were losing something. He grabbed her hand again, kissing her cold knuckles. Hazel, a lot happened after you left. After all that, I realized the person I truly love has always been you. You love me? As if hearing the world's biggest joke, Hazel turned to look at Ethan in disbelief. Yes, I love you. I don't know when I started loving you. Seeing you with Julian, I was jealous, insanely jealous. When I found you missing, I realized I only cared about you. Hazel, don't leave me again, okay? Ethan kissed her hand again. His tear fell on Hazel's hand, scalding her so much she pulled it back. What about Annabelle? Looking at the emotional Ethan, Hazel felt only disgust. Back then, he claimed he only loved Annabelle and she was just a transaction. Annabelle? Remembering Annabelle lying pale in the hospital bed, Ethan frowned. I once loved her, but she isn't worthy. Ha, so you think you are worthy of loving me? Hazel, Hazel, are you okay? Suddenly, a weak and anxious voice interrupted whatever Ethan was about to say. Chapter 18, seeing Xavier Evans being wheeled in by a nurse, looking at her with concern, Hazel returned a weak smile. I'm fine. Xavier was Hazel's fellow cancer patient. They had known each other for 2 years. When Hazel woke up 2 days ago, Xavier was the one by her side. The nurse secretly told Hazel that Xavier was still weak himself. Everyone urged him to rest and wait for her to wake up, but he refused, wanting to be the first person she saw. He guarded her bedside for 7 days, fainting and needing rescue several times, but always stubbornly returning to her side. Thinking of this, Hazel couldn't help but look at Xavier a bit longer. But those glances were caught by Ethan. He gripped his hands on the bed, looking at Xavier with jealousy. Good, you don't know, when they told me you fell, I was scared to death. Really? You just got out of chemo, why didn't you have someone with you? Xavier struggled onto the bed with the nurse's help. Panting, he finally noticed the man sitting by Hazel's bed, looking at him with hostility. And this is... Xavier had never seen Ethan. In his memory, no one ever visited Hazel. A stranger. I don't know him. Hazel closed her tired eyes. She didn't want to see Ethan at all right now. Hearing Hazel's reply, Xavier noted Ethan's clenched fists. Although he didn't know their history, Xavier instinctively disliked this man who suddenly appeared by Hazel's bed. Thank you for visiting, Hazel. In all these years, this is the first time. Xavier smiled, thanking Ethan on Hazel's behalf like a host. Hearing this, the anger in Ethan's eyes burned brighter. Between her and me, we don't need thanks from an outsider. Ethan turned to look at the sleeping Hazel, stood up, and pulled the curtain between Hazel and Xavier's beds. Hazel, look how thin you are. You must not have been eating well. I'll go see what good food there is and bring it back. You need to eat well so the baby can grow healthy. Hazel, I know everything. Grandpa told me this is the first child of the Sterling family. I'll make sure he's well fed. Hazel. Ethan, you're so noisy. Hearing Ethan chattering in her ear, Hazel frowned. He didn't know that the child hadn't returned to the real world with her. Right, I wasn't thinking. You need rest. Hazel, rest here. I'll go change my clothes. Wait for me? Ethan stood up, took one last deep look at Hazel, and left the room. Watching Ethan leave, Hazel felt conflicted. She thought returning meant cutting all ties with Ethan. She hadn't expected him to follow her. She didn't understand why the system sent him here. But she really didn't love him anymore. 28 days left. she would leave forever. She just wanted to spend her last 28 days in peace. Since meeting Ethan, he guarded Hazel at the hospital every day. He cooked nutritious meals, massaged her back, and brought fresh flowers daily. He shared funny things, looked at her with heartache during chemo. Even at night, Ethan slept on a cot by her side. But this Ethan suffocated Hazel. When she loved him, he ignored her. Now that she didn't, he humbled himself to care for her. But late affection is cheaper than grass. She didn't care about his kindness. Hazel took out a slip of paper from her bag with a phone number. It was given to her by the suited man when she left Rosalind's room. He said to call if she needed anything, but only once. Looking at the number, Hazel dialed it without hesitation. Chapter 19, when the man in the suit pushed Hazel to the entrance of the villa, Hazel's jaw dropped in surprise. Wasn't this the villa she shared with Ethan? Are you sure this is Grandma Rosalind's villa? Hazel turned to look at the man in disbelief. The man nodded slightly, then handed her a key and a bank card. This card contains all of Miss Ross's savings. The password is your birthday. My mission is complete. I wish you a pleasant life. Without waiting for more questions, the man turned and vanished into the distance. Watching him disappear, Hazel shook her head helplessly and wheeled herself into the villa. Finding the bedroom familiarly, Hazel lay on the bed. She was too tired. She needed rest. Hazel closed her eyes wearily and drifted off. She didn't know how long she slept, but the sound of a door opening woke her. It was the next morning, but who would come here? Hazel slowly got out of bed. To her surprise, when she went downstairs, she saw Ethan busy in the kitchen. Hazel, you're awake? I just made porridge. It's still hot. Come eat. Ethan placed the porridge on the table and turned back to his tasks. Ethan, why are you here? Looking at the busy Ethan, Hazel was too stunned to speak. Me? I've always been here. Ethan poured a glass of milk for her. Hazel didn't know that the day Ethan left the hospital soaked, a man in a suit found him. The man claimed to be the system inside the ring that brought him here. He took Ethan to the villa and vanished. Ethan was shocked to find this world identical to his, down to the trees on the street. Taking a chance, Ethan opened the door. When he found Hazel missing from the hospital yesterday, his first thought was the villa. Seeing Hazel sleeping peacefully there, his tension finally released. Now, looking at the shocked Hazel, Ethan felt everything was arranged by fate. Destiny bound them together. No matter how much time was left, he wouldn't let go. Ethan, did you follow me? I didn't. Besides, if I followed you, how would I have gotten in? All right, stop thinking so much. Come eat breakfast. Ethan seated Hazel and pushed the food toward her. But looking at it, Hazel lost her appetite. Ethan, let me go. Let yourself go. You know I only have 2 weeks. Can't you let me go in peace? Ethan, I'm tired. Really tired. Hearing this, Ethan paused in making toast. He stood with his back to her, red-eyed, silent. Yes, he had asked the doctor. Stage 4 stomach cancer. 14 days left. But lately, Hazel's appetite improved, she vomited less, and her color looked better. He kept hoping for a miracle. Hazel, don't say that. You'll get better. Ethan suppressed his tears, turned, and squatted before her. Hazel, let me stay with you, okay? Even if you don't forgive me, let me stay. I finally realized my feelings. Hazel, don't push me away. Ethan hugged the seated Hazel tightly. But this time, Hazel pulled away. Ethan, I don't love you anymore. Why do you shamelessly cling to me? Seeing Ethan's red eyes, Hazel felt annoyed. It's okay. I love you, that's enough. I know I hurt you deeply. I don't ask forgiveness, but let me stay. Hazel, please, give me a chance to make up for my mistakes. Ethan knelt before her, begging for a chance to atone. But once missed, it's missed. There is no medicine for regret. Apologies are just for his own peace of mind. Looking at the kneeling Ethan, Hazel frowned. Fine. Hazel stood up and left the villa. Chapter 20, when Hazel returned to the villa, she brought someone with her. Zav, you'll live here from now on. Hazel led Xavier into the villa, holding his hand in front of Ethan, showing him every corner. Seeing Xavier, Ethan felt the blood rush to his head, threatening to burst his vessels. Suppressing his rage, Ethan watched their smiling backs, clenching his fists tighter. He knew Hazel was doing it on purpose. Ethan, Xavier likes sweet things, not spicy. Pay attention when cooking. Ethan, Xavier likes green, forest green, not white. Change the sheets and curtains in the bedroom to green. Ethan, Xavier has a bad appetite today and threw up. Make something bland. Ethan, Xavier has chemo today, drive us. Ethan, Xavier. Listening to the orders, Ethan pressed his lips together and agreed to everything. Until one morning a week later, Ethan returned from the market to find the villa in chaos. Hazel, where are you? Fear surged in Ethan's heart, skipping a beat. He called out, but the empty villa offered no response. Finally, he found the unconscious Xavier by the pool. Sensing something, Ethan rushed to the pool edge. Sure enough, Hazel lay motionless in the water, just like at that birthday party. Seeing Hazel, Ethan's heart leapt to his throat. Without thinking, he jumped in and pulled her out. Hazel, wake up, don't scare me, please, wake up. Giving her CPR, his cold hands finally warmed when he saw her cough up water. Xavier? But upon waking, Hazel immediately ran to the unconscious Xavier. She slapped his face, but the pale Xavier didn't react. Ethan, are you stupid? Call 911. Zav, wake up, don't scare me. Watching Hazel scream at him, Ethan's heart ached to the point of suffocation. So back then, he was such a bastard. At that birthday party, he chose Annabelle and hurt Hazel to the core. Trembling, Ethan dialed emergency services. At the hospital, watching Xavier wake up, Hazel sighed in relief. Xavier Evans, are you stupid? I'm dying anyway, why save me? Hazel buried her face in Xavier's chest and cried. Seeing the tearful Hazel, Xavier smiled. Silly Hazel, what dying? You'll live a long life. Watching their gazes lock, Ethan felt bitter. Hazel, what exactly happened at home? Ethan stepped between them, blocking their view. It was Aunt Petunia. She heard I had money and found the villa. I wanted to call the police, but she grabbed my phone. Hazel's hands trembled. She hadn't expected her aunt, who hadn't visited in 2 years, to show up. Seeing Hazel's anger, Ethan called the police. The police arrived quickly. The villa cameras clearly showed Aunt Petunia and her gang breaking in, ransacking the place, and holding Hazel's head underwater to demand her bank password. Xavier tried to save her, but was pushed down and fainted due to his weakness. Hazel refused to give the password, so they threw her in the pool and took everything valuable. Watching the footage, Ethan realized his palms were bloody. His nails dug into his flesh, but the pain was nothing compared to his heart. Helping the police arrest Aunt Petunia and her gang, listening to her curses, Ethan stepped forward and covered Hazel's ears. Chapter 21, Hazel's Death Countdown, Day 4. She woke early, looked at her pale reflection, and finally put on beautiful makeup. After the incident with Aunt Petunia, Hazel didn't dare let Xavier stay. She knew Xavier's feelings, but she hadn't reciprocated. She didn't have much time, she didn't want to hold him back. Xavier was different. His illness could improve. She was facing certain death. Stopping her thoughts, looking at her rosier reflection, Hazel got up to leave. She promised the dean she'd visit the orphanage. Going downstairs, she saw Ethan up even earlier, making breakfast. Ethan, why are you still here? Hazel hadn't expected that pretending to love Xavier wouldn't drive Ethan away. He seemed to have changed, no longer the Ethan she knew. Hearing Hazel, Ethan froze. Did she want him gone that badly? Looking at his wrinkled hands holding the knife, Ethan closed his eyes in pain. He discovered it this morning. The 50-year lifespan payment was coming due. Putting down the knife and hiding his hands behind his back, Ethan turned with a smile. Hazel, won't you forgive me, no matter what I do? Sigh, Hazel, I said I'd stay by your side whether you hate me or not. By the way, you're up early, not sleeping more? Ethan washed his hands, put on gloves, and brought breakfast to her. Looking at his gloved hands, Hazel frowned. Ethan, it's summer. Why are you wearing gloves? Nothing, just felt a bit cold. Ethan placed the food in front of her. Eat, or it'll get cold and hurt your stomach. I have to go out later, I'll go with you. Before Hazel finished, Ethan interrupted. His time was short, he just wanted to be with her. Looking at Ethan's pleading eyes, Hazel finally nodded. She had loved him deeply once. Though not now, the memory of that emotion remained. Taking Ethan to the orphanage, seeing his confusion, Hazel finally told him everything. My parents died in a car crash when I was small, according to my aunt. She took me in for their money. She had a son 5 years older than me who bullied me. One New Year, it snowed heavily. I had a fever, but he kicked me out, calling me a virus. I was 7, in thin pajamas, watching the lights of other homes, fainting on the road alone. The dean saved me, paid for my treatment, and pulled me back from death. Later, the dean took care of me until my sponsor appeared. Seeing someone sponsoring me, my aunt happily took me back. But since I was hospitalized, she never visited. That day was the first time I'd seen her in years. Hazel sighed. Thinking of the dean, Hazel's eyes reddened. 2 years ago, shortly after Hazel was hospitalized, news came that the dean had passed away from illness. "Hazel, it's okay, you. I'll beat you to death, you shameless thief." Ethan's words were interrupted by a commotion nearby. Chapter 22, when Hazel and Ethan rushed over, they saw a little girl cowering in the crowd, surrounded by other children kicking and punching her. "What are you doing?" Hazel ran to shield the girl. Seeing the girl's bruised mouth but stubborn eyes, Hazel's heart ached. This child looked so much like her past self. "Auntie, she's a bad kid. Stay away from her. The dean gave me 5 candies, but she stole 2. Look." A boy stepped out, holding 3 candies up to Hazel. "Did you steal them?" Hazel looked at the girl in her arms. Seeing the girl shake her head stubbornly, Hazel stroked her hair gently. "Then tell Auntie what happened. He ate his candies but wanted mine. I wouldn't give them, so he grabbed mine and hit me." The girl started crying in Hazel's arms. Looking at the tear-streaked face, Hazel hugged her tightly. She had experienced the same scene at Aunt Petunia's house. Bringing the children to the new dean, the surveillance confirmed the girl's story. The boy was punished with sweeping, and the candy was returned. Watching the girl skip away, the new dean sighed. "Hazel, that child is just like you were. Seeing her reminds me of you. Dean Zhang has been gone for years. Thank you for remembering her and this failing orphanage." The new dean held Hazel's hand. She had just received notice that a Miss Hazel Bennett donated $50 million for expansion. "If not for you and Dean Zhang, there would be no Hazel Bennett today." "Hazel, is this your boyfriend?" Looking at Ethan behind her, the dean nodded politely. Glancing back, Hazel didn't reply but held the dean's hand. "Dean, I just came to visit. It's been a long time." "Good, good." The dean showed them around and discussed future plans. Listening to this, Hazel's smile widened. It was good. The place she lived would get better. Hazel's death countdown, day 2, she visited Xavier. He looked much better, though his mother wasn't fond of Hazel. Understandable. Who would like someone who pushed their son toward death? Returning home, Hazel noticed Ethan getting stranger. In the heat of July, he wore not just gloves, but a hat, scarf, and mask, showing only his deep, reluctant eyes. "Ethan, we're inside. Why are you bundled up?" "I'm cold." Ethan shrank his neck, acting cold, but sweat beaded on his forehead. In her weakness, Hazel didn't notice the sweat. "Hazel, will you still not forgive me?" Chapter 23, seeing Hazel heading upstairs without looking at him, Ethan finally asked the question he wanted to ask. Now, his hair, face, and body had aged to that of an old man. He bundled up to hide his abnormality from Hazel. He felt his life draining. He knew he was leaving, but he wanted forgiveness before the end. Hearing Ethan, Hazel paused. Staring at her unmoving toes, Hazel sighed deeply. "Ethan, why bother? We can't go back. What meaning is there in forgiveness?" "Ethan, a broken heart can't be pieced back together." "Ethan, just go." Hazel didn't hesitate anymore and went straight to her room. She didn't see the hunched Ethan clutching his chest in agonizing pain, slowly collapsing. Hazel's death countdown, the final day. Lying in bed, recalling her life, feeling the last bit of life drain away, Hazel finally closed her eyes. It was good. Leaving without pain was good, but being human was so tiring. In the next life, could she please not be human? A final crystal tear fell from Hazel's eye, its sparkle matching the diamond ring. The light shot from the bedroom, through the living room, into the ring on Ethan's finger. A blinding white light flashed, and Ethan returned to his world. But his world would never have Hazel again. Back in the system world, looking at his aged self in the mirror, Ethan smiled bitterly. He was back, but his world had changed drastically. Grandpa passed away shortly after he left. Before leaving, Grandpa left the company to him. But without Hazel, what meaning did it have? Watching himself age daily, Ethan made his final decision. He visited Julian in the mental hospital. After learning his origins, Julian couldn't accept it and went mad. Then Ethan visited Annabelle's grave. His assistant said Annabelle chased him like a madwoman that day to stop him leaving. She didn't see the truck. By the time the Sterlings arrived, she was crushed. Knowing what she did to the Sterlings, the Archer family disowned their dead daughter. The Sterlings handled her body and found the grave. Finally, Ethan went to the orphanage. Although the place was the same, the people were different. Staying there all day, seeing the donation certificate, Ethan smiled. He donated all of Sterling Corp's assets to the orphanage. Returning to the empty villa, Ethan took a knife into the bedroom. Lying on the bed where Hazel slept, Ethan cut his artery without hesitation. Feeling the blood flow from his wrist, feeling life vanish, Ethan smiled his deepest smile. Hazel, can I find you in the next life? Hazel, in the next life, let me fall in love with you first, the end.